Hello everyone, today I'm here to review for you Beacon Patrol by Pandasaurus Games. Now this was provided to me for the review, so just keep that in mind, but let's roughly go through how the game plays and then I'll give you my thoughts and feelings on it. Beacon Patrol is a sort of tile placement puzzle that you're trying to do the best at. Now be that solo or a sort of cooperative group of you with up to 4 players. Now on your turn, you're going to do a number of different things, and the amount of them you can do, it sort of depends on the player counts. Depending on how many players you got, maybe how many movement tokens or how many tiles you've got available to you to place. So let's just talk of if it's a solo game, and then I'll say some differences for the other player counts. So if you're playing solo, you're going to have 4 movements on your turn, and you can spend them to move between ocean tiles, but if you're trying to go across land, you can't do that. You'd maybe have to go round the land, spending more of them. And you can break that up. You could move a little bit and then do something different. Something different like placing a tile, because, well, that's kind of the main aim here. You're going to be placing tiles to surround other things, because surrounded tiles are going to score you points. Just a bit of water surrounded, well, that's going to give you 1 point. One with a beacon buoy sort of thing on it, that's going to be 2 points. And your starting tile, as well as lighthouses, if you manage to surround that tile, up, down, left, right, they're worth 3 points. And we'll touch on the expansions in a minute. Right, so effectively, on your turn, you're placing a tile which forces you to move onto it, then spending these movement tiles to move around to hopefully then get to a place where you can place another tile, because when you're placing them you have to sort of carry on the illustration. It has to make sense. If that bit at the top of a tile has a bit of land on it, you can't just plop some water there. It has to be another bit of land next to it, and that sort of logic. When you're placing the tiles, you've got to move onto them, so you can't place it just land onto land necessarily. You might have to move your boat around a bit. And a big caveat is that all tiles have to face in a specific direction. They've almost got like an arrow, a compass direction, and they're all having to face in the same direction. And once you've placed as many of the tiles as you can / want, you've spent all of your movement, well, then your turn is over. In a more player games, it would go on to the next player, but otherwise it's going to go back to you. Now, a small thing in a solo game is that you can keep one of your tiles, your map tiles, you can keep one. In a normal game, you'd have to discard all of the tiles you didn't place. Then draw up to 3 in a solo game, it depends on your player count, and you go again. And you're going to do this until all of the tiles have run out. Now, I did say there's a little thing you can do if you've got more than 1 player, and that's you're also able at one point in your turn to swap a tile with someone else. Now it can be helpful if you're like, oh, I think I can get my boat over here and place that tile that you've got. Well, you can go and do that, and that's quite a nice thing that you can do co-oping that you can't do in solo, but in solo you can hold on to one tile for the next round sort of thing. So there's gives and takes from the 2 different versions, but effectively that's what you're going to be doing. You're going to be moving around this map, placing tiles according to the restrictions, and trying to surround as many of those sort of good tiles, or as many tiles as you can. Just knowing, lighthouses, more points, buoys, slightly less points, and ocean tiles, still worth it, because they're a point. There are 2 micro expansions that you might as well shuffle in after your first game, and they are windmills, which effectively score for open ocean tiles around them as bonuses, or there's piers that are going to score the houses on the islands that they're next to. And well, as long as they are surrounded, they're going to score. Now there's not many of these tiles that get shuffled in, but they do increase the amount of points that you're aiming to get, because when you finish the game, you're going to compare your score to the tables or table of which expansion you're using, not using, in the rulebook to see how well you've done. Straight away, Beacon Patrol actually really reminded me of another game that feels like a puzzle that you can co-op, but I predominantly would want to solo, Bandido. In that, you are placing some cards down, and you could be doing it with a teammate. In this, you're placing those tiles down, and you can be doing it with a teammate, but it feels like a puzzle that you're trying to solve. You're trying to do as well in this puzzle as you can, just you, and that's how I like to play it. However, I do like the opportunity of swapping a tile if you're with sort of a second player, but you're not really gonna, I can't see this really being great with 4 players, simply because it's a lot of time between your turns where, well, maybe their boat is off on the other side of the map. If you're looking for a puzzle though, this could be a good one for you. And while initially I was a bit like, oh, so you can't just place these tiles in any orientation, I'd have liked that because it would add quite a lot of variety. Well, it does really add to that puzzle sort of element of the game. As all of a sudden, this piece, I'd need to boat round to be able to place that. I can't just place it over here sort of thing. And that's quite an interesting puzzle that you've got to get your head around when you're playing for the first time, and you're probably going to get a bit of a lackluster score in the first game as you start to realise, oh, I can't place this in this orientation, it's got to be in this orientation because I can't place it otherwise. And little things like that, that just, it seems like an odd rule for a tile placement game, but if you feel, sort of look at this more as like a puzzle that you're trying to solve as well as you can, then it sort of starts to make sense. If you go into this thinking, oh, this is a puzzle, a tile placement game, points, 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 you might be a bit like, oh, why can't I just place this tile in any direction? Because it feels like I can explore and do more of the map if I do that. But no, it's sort of there to sort of make that puzzle harder. And it's kind of needed, I think, because otherwise, well, the scores would be a lot higher. For better or worse, it's part of the puzzle that you've got to work with. And that puzzle itself, well, wow, I think it looks pretty awesome on the table. I don't think it's going to be a look for everyone, but I love the sort of simplistic, very stunning vibe that they've gone for. I love like just the look of the sort of the red and white lighthouse up against the white land, the sort of light blue sea bits with some bobbing buoys in it. I think that looks really cool, and when you're moving your little boat meeple around, I think it looks great. It's not going to maybe be an art style that everyone's just going to be like, that's stunning. But I think the simplicity of it really elevates this title to look cool and look different on the table. They've not tried to make it so hyper realistic looking land and stuff. I think it's gone for an art style, and that art style really works for it. One thing that the game certainly does well is it's got a reference card for each player. Now, it's something, for some reason, not all games manage to do, and while personally I will play this solo and maybe with another player and not up to 4, the fact that this sort of game is like that for me, has 4 copies of the reminder card in there, it's got to be something that's shouted out as just great. Because every game should have, for its full player count, one of those reminder cards if there's one in the box. And if there's not, it should have one. And this does. So I've got to shout the game out for that part. Turns are full of some small choices. You have a selection of tiles, and how best can you add them to that sort of growing tile puzzle in front of you? Can you, oh, if I move down here, I could add that one, but if I move up here, I could add this one, which is going to be better in the long run. This one's a lot of water, so I could go in any direction from it on a later date. This one's a bit of a land. Oh, but if I went round it, I could then fill it in, and that's then hopefully got like a lighthouse on it. That's going to score your points, and that's what the game is all about. So there's some great choices, and your turn can, as a result, take a little bit of time sometimes. I think this is, again, why less players means you're not waiting as long, because you've got to calculate sometimes. All right, 1 movement, 2 movement, place that tile. That's good, but then I've only got 2 movement left to get back or something. Whereas if I spend 3 movement points now, I can place that tile, place this tile, and then I've got that final action point if I need to of movement to get back or move somewhere else. So you've got to run through a few different things despite only having a handful of tiles in front of you. There's some good choices there that build into that puzzle. So overall, Beacon Patrol might be sold as a tile placement game, but I view it much more as a tile placement puzzle. And if you go into it with that mindset, I think it looks great on the table. It's certainly got some choices for you to make. You're going to regret some of your choices partway through as you realise, why did I put that bit of land there? If it was ocean, I could play all of these tiles in this round. And yeah, you're going to be sort of seeing how you've scored against it at the end of the round, end of the game, and hopefully you can play again, beat that score, get higher up, and then you've also got those micro expansions that you're probably going to throw in because why not? They just add a bit of extra variety once you've played the game once. And it's a fun one. I don't know how many times you're going to play it, but you can definitely play it a handful of times, sort of as you're adding in the expansions, as you're trying to get better at the puzzle. And it's just, yeah, if you're going to vibe with that puzzle, it will work for you. If you were thinking this is more of like a exploration out and building out your tiles, well, it is that, but in a very puzzled way rather than just go for it as much as you can. And I think that's maybe where you sit on that, where you feel on that, that's going to be if this game's for you or not. Hopefully this has helped you find out if this is going to be a game for you. Certainly if you're looking for a solo puzzly challenge, it could be one for you. So let me know if you've played the game and what you thought of it in the comment section below. And thank you to Pandasaurus Games for the review copy. And until next time, have a great day beacon patrolling.